everyone. Welcome to the Hindu Current Affairs for Beginners by Law Excellence IAS Academy. Before starting our today's session, first let us see answer for the question from our yesterday's video. How is the National Green Tribunal different from Central Pollution Control Board? The National Green Tribunal has been established by an act, whereas CPCB has been created by an executive order of the government. This statement is incorrect because here the National Green Tribunal is established by an NGT Act of 2010, whereas even the CPCB is also established under the provisions of Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act of 1974. So even this statement is incorrect. The next statement is the National Green Tribunal provides environmental justice and helps reduce the burden of litigation in the higher courts, whereas CPCB promotes cleanliness of streams and wells and aims to improve the quality of air in the country. This statement is correct. So as only 2 is correct, the answer here is B. Now let's start today's session, and these are all the topics that we are going to cover in our today's video, and the notes for this video is available in our description below. The first article is Supreme Court appoints 3-member panel to mediate in Ayodhya dispute. This article comes under GS paper 2 in the main syllabus under the topic of judiciary. In our yesterday's video, we have seen about this article, and there we have seen about a concept known as alternate dispute resolution mechanism, and we have said that it is an alternate mechanism to the traditional method of going to court and resolving the dispute. And this alternate dispute resolution mechanism is of 4 types. One is arbitration, conciliation, mediation, and getting the resolution of our disputes through lok adalats. Now, we have seen about this mediation yesterday because Supreme Court wants to resolve this Ayodhya dispute regarding this Ram Janmabhoomi and Babri Masjid issue. So, yesterday the Supreme Court has chosen 3 mediators to resolve this dispute through this alternate dispute resolution mechanism called as mediation. These are the 3 members: Justice Kalifullah, Sri Ram Panchu, and Sri Ravi Shankar. These 3 were selected by the Supreme Court as mediators to resolve this Ayodhya dispute. And Supreme Court gave 8 weeks time for this panel to complete this mediation process. The next article is Strange Turn. This article is a continuation of our first article, and it also comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of judiciary. This entire article is saying that whether this process called mediation is applicable or will it work in resolving this Ayodhya dispute, because most of the parties were not in favor of this mediation mechanism in resolving this dispute between the Ram Mandir supporters and Babri Masjid supporters. And this article gives a brief background about various verdicts in this issue. Now let us see the chronology of events in this Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid land dispute case in Ayodhya, where the Supreme Court has referred this politically sensitive case for mediation to a panel that is headed by former Supreme Court Judge Kalifullah, and gave that panel 8 weeks time to complete the process. Now, in 1528, Babri Masjid was built by Mir Baqi, who is the commander of Mughal Emperor Babur. And in 1885, Raghubir Das, he filed a plea in Faziabad District Court seeking permission to build a canopy outside this disputed Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid structure. But court has rejected Raghubir Das' petition. And in 1949, the idols of Ram Lalla placed under a central dome outside the disputed structure. In 1950, Gopal Simla Visharat, he filed a suit in Faziabad District Court for the rights to worship the idols of the Ram Lalla. And in 1959, Nirmohi Akhara, they filed a suit seeking possession of that site. And in 1981, Uttar Pradesh Sunni Central Waqf Board, they filed a suit for the possession of this site. Whereas in February 1st of 1986, the local court has ordered the government to open the site for Hindu worshippers. This is what the local court has ordered the government. And in 1989, the Allahabad High Court has ordered maintenance of status quo with regard to this disputed structure. And in 1992, Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid structure was demolished. It was demolished in 1992. And in 1993, acquisition of certain area at Ayodhya Act. This was passed for acquiring of the land by the center in this disputed area. Then various writ petitions were filed in the Allahabad High Court challenging this act. Then Supreme Court, while exercising its jurisdiction under Article 139A, has transferred the writ petitions that were pending in the High Court. In 1994, Supreme Court has said that the mosque was not integral to Islam. And in 2003, the Supreme Court has said that no religious activity of any nature, should be allowed in the acquired land. But the Allahabad High Court in 2010 has ruled a three-way division of this disputed area between Sunni Waqf Board, Nirmohi Akhara and Ram Lalla. But Supreme Court has stayed this order on Ayodhya land dispute. Again in 2016, Subramanian Swamy, he filed a petition in the Supreme Court for seeking construction of Ram temple at this disputed site. In 2016, again a petition was filed to construct Ram temple. Whereas in 2017, Justice Kehar, Chief Justice of India, who was Justice Kehar at that time, he suggested out of court settlement among the rival parties. Out of court. This is nothing but our alternate dispute mechanism. This is what suggested by Justice Kehar in 2017. In 2019 of January, the Supreme Court has said that it will constitute an appropriate bench and it will pass the order by January 10th. But due to various reasons, this date has got rescheduled, and on February 26th of this month, Supreme Court has decided to refer this dispute for mediation. And yesterday, it has appointed a 3-member panel to resolve this dispute. The next article is ArcelorMittal to take over the debt-ridden Essar Steel. This article is not of much importance for us, but there is a concept here which is involved in this article that is important for our prelims as well as mains. So that particular concept is insolvency and bankruptcy code and the process of resolution under this code. This comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of economy, and it also comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of governance. Now, let us see what this article is all about. This Essar Steel is one among the 12 large steel and other infrastructure companies which has been defaulted. It has debts around 50.78 billion rupees. That means it has been declared as bankrupt. We know what is meant by insolvency. It is inability to repay the debts by the debtor. Whereas bankruptcy is the legal declaration for insolvency. Now, there are so many banks who has given loans to this Essar Steel. Under this Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, which has brought in a new resolution process for these kind of insolvency issues, whether the creditor or the debtor, anybody can approach the adjudicating authority under this insolvency and bankruptcy code to get this dispute resolved. So here, as this SR Steel is a corporate, now the adjudicating authority will be the National Company Law Tribunal. One of the banks which has lent to this SR Steel is SBI. SBI has approached this National Company Law Tribunal to settle this issue. This was taken up by National Company Law Tribunal within 14 days. It has to be taken within 14 days, but it can either take or reject the petition filed either by the debtor or by the creditor. And it will appoint an insolvency resolution professional. This professional will be appointed from a insolvency resolution professional agency. These are the people who are professional in developing a plan to resolve this insolvency issue. Now all the details of this company will be taken up by these insolvency resolution professionals, and that financial information from this SR Steel will be provided by information utilities. They will collect all the financial information regarding this SR Steel, and a committee of creditors will be created, and these committee of creditors will be assisting this insolvency resolution professional in drawing this resolution plan. The time for the professional to plan is 180 days and it can be extended up to 90 days. And now it is dependent on this committee of creditors whether to accept this resolution plan given by the professionals. And to accept this resolution plan, 66% of the committee of creditors has to vote for this plan. Then only that plan will be implemented. What and all can be involved in that plan? Here, a company can be sold off to another company, or its management can be changed, or its business plan can be changed, or it can be leased to some other person. If this plan is not accepted by 66% of the committee of the creditors, then the company will be liquidated. That means the company will be sold off, and the amount which was got by selling this company, the debts of the company will be cleared off by repaying to the creditors. This is how the insolvency resolution process will happen under this insolvency and bankruptcy code. So now, as per this article, ArcelorMittal, who is trying to enter India's fastest growing steel market, has won the bid to take over SR Steel by paying a total of 420 billion rupees towards the debts of SR Steel, and it is going to put another 80 billion rupees into the operations and profitability of SR Steel's business. The next article is 3.32 lakh MSME jobs created in last 4 years, finds CII survey. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of employment. So here there is a survey conducted by Confederation of Indian Industry, and it has found that only 3.32 lakh net jobs in micro, small and medium enterprise firms in India. And it has found that the micro enterprises were the largest job generators. It has generated nearly 73% of the total jobs, and the small enterprises have generated 23% of the jobs, while the medium enterprises, they have provided only 4% of these 3.32 lakh jobs. And this survey has defined the net jobs created as recruitment-less exits. This is how it has defined this net jobs that were created. And now, from the prelims point of view, we should know what are these MSMEs, micro, small and medium enterprises. Micro, small and medium enterprises were established based on an act known as Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Act of 2006. And this deals with the definition of these MSMEs. This act defines MSMEs based on two things. One is investment in plant and machinery for those that were engaged in manufacturing or production, processing or preservation of goods. And the other component based on which these MSMEs were defined is investment in equipment for the enterprises that were engaged in providing or rendering services. Here they have focused on plant and machinery for production type of MSMEs, whereas for service based MSMEs they were defined based on equipment. Now let us see how they were clearly demarcated. First, micro industries based on in-plant and machinery. An industry will be considered as a micro enterprise if its investment in the in-plant and machinery, if it doesn't exceed, if it is less than 25 lakhs. And in case of services, it will be called as a micro enterprise if it is not exceeding, the investment is not exceeding 10 lakhs, then it will be considered as micro enterprise. For a small enterprise, the investment in the plant and machinery should be between 25 lakh to 50 lakh, whereas in case of services it should be between 10 lakh to 200 lakhs, that means 2 crores. Now what about this micro, small and medium? The next one, medium enterprises. It should be more than 5 crores, but it shouldn't exceed 10 crores. This is the range for a medium enterprise investing in plant and the machinery. Whereas for service based, it should be between 2 crores, but it should not exceed 5 crores. This is how these MSMEs were defined based on their investments in case of production and in case of equipment for service based enterprises. The next article is Cancer Drugs 87% Cheaper After Trade Margin Cap. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of issues related to health. So now the government has announced that the maximum retail price of 390 non-scheduled cancer medicines will be reduced by up to 87%. Previously, the National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority has invoked powers under Drugs Pricing Control Order of 2013, and it has brought down the prices for 42 non-scheduled anti-cancer drugs under price control by capping the trade margin at 30%. What is this concept called as trade margin? Trade margin is the difference between the price at which manufacturers will sell the drugs to the distributors and the maximum retail price at which the patients will buy these drugs. So the trade margin is, it is the price at which the manufacturers will sell the drugs to the distributors and the maximum retail price that has been sold to the patients. What is this National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority? This is an independent body that was set up in 1997 under the Department of Pharmaceuticals under the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers. The main responsibility of this authority is to fix or revise the drugs prices and their formulations, and it is this authority which will enforce the prices and also the availability of medicines under Drug Price Control Order of 2013. So now it is this authority which has brought down this trade margin cap for 390 drugs by 87%. And this authority will also monitor the availability of drugs and it will identify if there is any shortage. So it is the one who is responsible for making the drugs available to the patients, and it has to collect the data regarding the production, exports and imports, and what is the profitability of the companies for these bulk drugs and their formulations. The next article is Do Forest Surveys Separately. This article comes under GS Paper 3 under the topic of Environment, and it also comes under GS Paper 1 under the topic of Geography. So what is this article is all about? A high power committee was constituted by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and this high powered committee has recommended that the forest surveys should demarcate between the trees that were grown in the forests from the trees that were grown in plantations and private lands. What is happening till now is the trees that were both within the forest as well as outside the forest were also counted together as forest cover under this India's geographical area covered by the forest. This India's geographical area covered by the forest means how much area of the entire country is covered by the forest. This is calculated by considering the trees that were present in the forest and also outside the forest. Trees outside the forest include the trees that were grown in the plantations and also in the private lands. So now this high powered committee is saying that demarcate this. In order to know about India's geographical area under the forest cover, use only the number of trees that were there in the forest but not these outside the forest. Demarcate these two. Why it is saying this? Because according to National Forest Policy of 1988, it is India's goal to have its 33% of total geographical area covered by this forest cover. So, in order to get a detailed data about our forest cover and to reach this 33% goal, this high-powered committee has suggested to demarcate these trees that were there within the forest and outside the forest. So now, what is important from the prelims point of view is who releases this? India's State of Forest Report. It is the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. And how often it releases it? It is released once in every 2 years. So now, the survey is carried out by the Forest Survey of India. They will carry out this survey and it will be published in a report titled as India's State of Forest Report. The first report was brought out in 1987 and 2017's report is the latest one and it is the 15th report. And according to this 2017's India State of Forest Report, the total forest and tree cover is 24.39% of the geographical area, saying that there is a 0.21% rise in the area under forest between this 2015 and 17. So here from this table what is important for us is we should remember these. What is the tree cover? It is 2.95%, and what is the forest cover as of India's geographical area? It is 21.53% and there is a 0.21 increase from 2015 to 2017. And here we have said that this survey will be conducted by this Forest Survey of India. This organization works under the Ministry of Environment and Forests and it will conduct the survey and assess the forest resources in the country. The next article is UIDAI To Levy Fees for Verification. This article comes under GS Paper 2 under the topic of governance. So what is this article saying is the Unique Identification Authority of India has issued the Aadhaar Regulations 2019, and this notification has made it mandatory for the private organizations who are using Aadhaar services to pay 20 rupees for each customer's verification. This is for each customer's verification, and it is only for the private organizations, and they have to pay 50 paisa. It is not 50 rupees, it is 50 paisa for the authentication of unique ID. We should know about this Unique Identification Authority of India. This is the statutory authority but not the constitutional authority. This was established under the provisions of Aadhaar Act of 2016 under the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. It is this authority who has to issue these unique identification numbers, that is Aadhaar, which we are using now, to all the residents of India. The next article is Road Through Rome. This article comes under GS Paper 2 under the topic of international affairs. So this entire article is all about Italy is going to become the first of G7 group of industrialized nations to support China's Belt and Road Initiative. 2 days back we have seen about this. What is this Belt and Road Initiative of China? And also we have seen about China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is a subpart of this Belt and Road Initiative. Please check back to that video regarding these details. So now Italy is one among the G7 group of industrialized nations, and it is the first out of this G7 who is supporting this Belt and Road Initiative of China. So is this Belt and Road Initiative any organization? No, it is not a multilateral organization, and it does not have any protocol for admitting the members, and it is not even a trade pact that will impose clear rules on participants in return for trade benefits. So what is Italy going to gain with this? With this move, Italy can win some goodwill from Beijing in the hope that the bilateral commerce will flourish under this Belt and Road Initiative banner. Even a Chinese investment into Europe is declining sharply. And this support of Italy to this Belt and Road Initiative can increase investment, and it will make Italy as an investment destination by making it more active and easier for the Chinese investors to invest under this Belt and Road Initiative. Now, from the prelims point of view, what is important for us here is, what is this G7? It is group of 7. It is a group consisting of 7 countries named Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, UK and the United States. The European Union is also represented within this G7, and these countries are the 7 major advanced economies. That's why we said while saying that it is the industrialized economies according to International Monetary Fund, and these countries represent more than 64% of the net global wealth. And the next thing that is mentioned in this article is Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Even that is important from the prelims point of view. This is a multilateral development bank initiated by China in order to provide finance to the infrastructure development and regional connectivity projects, especially in Asia Pacific region. This bank was established initially with a mission to improve the social and economic outcomes in Asia and beyond Asia. The next article is When Bandipur Burned. This article comes under GS Paper 3 under the topic of disaster management. This concept known as forest fires will come under this disaster management topic of GS paper 3. This entire article is detailing about the recent forest fires that broke out in Bandipur Tiger Reserve, that is located in Karnataka. And here this article is saying that what are the reasons for these frequent fires in Bandipur? Because Bandipur is a dry deciduous forest in the rain shadow region of Western Ghats. This has become intensified due to the failure of year-end northeast monsoon and also the intensity of temperature in summer. And it is saying that it is a result of bad fire management policies that resulted into this huge blaze in the Bandipur Tiger Reserve. Just read out this article. This article is not of much importance from the prelims point of view, but these forest fires concept is important. What could be the causes for a forest fire? The next article is SBI links savings account short-term loan rates to repo rate. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of economy. See, a few days ago we have seen that the Reserve Bank of India has suggested all the banks to link their lending rates with the external benchmark rate, that is the repo rate. The reason to suggest this is because there is no monetary transmission when the RBI has reduced this repo rate. Repo rate is the rate at which, it is the interest rate at which the commercial banks will borrow money from the Reserve Bank of India for their short-term lending. So now, if RBI has reduced this interest rates, then banks will borrow more and they are getting benefited due to these reduced interest rates. But these banks were not transferring these reduced interest rate benefits to its customers. That process is known as monetary transmission. That means if it is getting transferred to the customers, it is monetary transmission. But this is not happening. So for that reason, the Reserve Bank of India has asked the banks to link their lending rates with the external benchmark rate. Now SBI has linked its lending rate with this repo rate, so that if the repo rate changes, obviously even the lending rates will change. The next article is Bring in Constitutional Amendment on GST Revenue Sharing Proportion. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of economy. These statements are from our former RBI Governor Rangarajan. He is saying that yes, we had a GST council with both center and states, all 29 states plus 2 union territories, that is Delhi and Puducherry, who were having a weightage in and their say while discussing about these tax slabs, that is the tax rates for all the goods and services. It is this council who will combinedly decide. Here both the center, who will have 33.33% weightage for its word, and the states, both 29 and 2 union territories, will have 66.67% weightage while voting to put which good and services under which tax slab. But we don't have any proper committee or specified committee to fix this GST revenue share proportion. So how this GST revenue is being shared between the center and states, we don't have a committee. So he is saying that, so bring in a constitutional amendment for bringing a new committee to fix this GST revenue sharing proportion. Now let's see our today's prelims questions. The first question is regarding this Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. And the next question is, Unique Identification Authority of India is under the Ministry of. Try to answer these questions and post your answers in the comment box. In our tomorrow's video, we'll see a detailed explanation for these questions. Thank you.